has been cut and soaked in formalin so it doesn't smell. They are very scared and go back to the class. Then in his room, Hiraji watches a video of a woman, and she's Fumika, his ex-girlfriend. In the video, Fumika said about herself, "As a teacher, she wants to do the best for her students. Maybe sometimes she needs to disagree with her students and teach them about being human." Suddenly, Hiraji got a call from the police again, and they asked how the students were doing. Hiraji then asked for 30 omajiri for the students. The request will be granted and sent by the central commander, Toru. After waiting, Toru entered the school building alone, and he met Hiraji downstairs. All their conversations were recorded on a listening device attached to Toru's suit, but it turned out that Toru himself had broken it, and the gun that Hiraji was carrying was also a toy gun. Shockingly, the two of them were friends, and Toru already knew about Hiraji's actions. Toru even said that he was just an amateur compared to Hiraji. They sat down to chat, and Hiraji took Toru's real gun. It turned out that Toru had come on purpose and took part in this investigation to help Hiraji. Before going home, Toru asked Hiraji to hit him so that he would be seen attacked by Hiraji. And without hesitating, Hiraji ran and hit Toru as hard as he could. This made the other police believe that Toru had tried to stop Hiraji, and Toru would not be suspected of being Hiraji's friend. The next morning was the third day the students were held hostage. Hiraji started the lesson by showing a video that Usami posted on Mind Voice. This video was not recorded by Usami, but the recorder is in this class. Then Hiraji suddenly held his cell phone and said this was a criminal matter, so it was the police's job to process it. It turned out that the conversation had been deliberately recorded and overheard by the police. He is a lieutenant named Gunji, who had been in charge of this case from the first day. Hiraji has now ordered Lieutenant Gunji to arrest the perpetrator of the video recording. Hiraji gave him until 8 p.m. if the perpetrator is not caught, so this time 5 students will be finished off. Gunji was forced to obey Hiraji's wishes and start discussing with other police. In the video, the perpetrator is seen wearing a swimming jacket, so there is a possibility that the perpetrator was a student from the swimming extracurricular in Class 3A. While in the class, the students who took part in the swimming extracurricular started to be suspected because of the jacket, but they denied it. The situation got worse when Suzu began to blame Usami. According to her, if Usami hadn't uploaded the video, they wouldn't have suffered like this. Usami didn't want to answer, and she left. Sakura chases Usami, but Usami asks her to leave and doesn't want pity. But Sakura wanted to know who the perpetrator is and the reason why that student hates Reina. Then, Usami said the perpetrator could have deliberately worn a swimming club's jacket, even though he or she didn't take part in the extracurricular. On the other hand, in the men's toilet, someone was seen holding his cell phone and posting something on Mind Voice about the police being asked to find the perpetrator of the recording. The post immediately became news within minutes, even though the information was only known to the police. Gunji started to think that a student had managed to get the cell phone, and the student told them about the situation in the school building. Gunji immediately sent a private message to the student and asked who he was. Then, the student answered that he managed to hide the cell phone in the toilet. Then, Gunji said that he needed the student's help. In Fumika's house, she was seen coming out of her room and accidentally saw the news on TV, so she was shocked when the photo of her ex-boyfriend appeared on the news. The scene back to Hiraji, who was watching the recording from the camera that he confiscated. One of Reina's friends from swimming extracurricular, Kakeru, had been beaten up by a student from another school because he thought Kakeru was Reina's boyfriend. That naughty boy liked Reina, and he didn't like it if another guy approached Reina. Because of that incident, Kakeru's leg was badly injured and he couldn't swim anymore. That day, Sakura came to visit Kakeru and thanked him for protecting Reina. Sakura hoped that Kakeru still wants to support Reina, but Kakeru feels that is impossible because he can no longer swim. But Sakura suggests Kakeru to become the manager of the swimming club. Back to the present, Sakura remembered Usami's words about a student who was not from the swimming club. He came during the competition, and he was Kaido. Sakura remembered that Kaido was wearing a swimming club jacket. Then, Kakeru remembered at that time, He asked Kaido to help him when the competition was taking place and lent Kaido his jacket. Meanwhile, Gunji came to the place where the competition was being held and asked who were the people who came there. Suddenly, a message appeared from the student in Mind Voice. The student said that the whole class suspected Kaido. Gunji then found more details in the video. It can be seen that there is a yellowish stain on the jacket, which means that perhaps the perpetrator was eating or drinking something. Gunji also asked this student to ask the members of the swimming extracurricular team what food they eat on the competition day. It's almost 8:00 p.m. Hiraji entered the class and turned on the loudspeaker for his conversation with Gunji, and Hiraji asked who the culprit was. Gunji answered that there were two suspects, Kaido and Karen, but the key was the yellowish stain on the jacket, because the stain was caused by spilled tomato juice. And that day, Karen drank tomato juice while Kaido ate jelly. Suddenly, Karen denies that and says that day she ate jelly. Even this afternoon, Hiraji asked her about that. Gunji was trapped. It turns out that the person who sent the message to Gunji that Karen was drinking tomato juice was Hiraji himself. Plus, Hiraji has known from earlier that Gunji exchanged messages with a student whose cell phone is hidden in the toilet. It means Kaido drank the tomato juice. All students glanced at Kaido. He finally couldn't avoid it and finally admitted that he was the perpetrator. The scene showed when Kaido confessed his feelings for Rina. But unfortunately, Rina couldn't accept his love. Kaido had previously known that Rina had always liked Kakeru, but he didn't accept it because he felt Kakeru was lower than him. Then, on the street, someone came up to him and asked if Kaido wanted to teach Rina a lesson because she rejected him. That person asked Kaido to record her secretly and humiliate her. Kaido was instigated and he came to the locker room to take a bottle of medicine, which turned out to be a vitamin. He was hiding in another locker and filming Rina changing clothes, but there was a feeling of guilt in him. He stopped recording it, left the locker, and ran away. Kaido was surprised when the video was edited, even though the bottle he was holding at that time was just vitamin. But in the video, it changed into drugs. And also, he's not the one who kept the DVD in Usaini's locker. Hiraji then asked why Kaido didn't change the grudge against Rina into motivation. Hiraji then told them a story that once there was a teacher who failed to save the student who was involved in a fight with other schools. The student died and the teacher has a grudge against the perpetrator. But the teacher has now become a police officer and has turned his revenge into motivation to save other people so they don't experience what his student experienced before. Then, Gunji is just silent. How did Hiraji know about his past? Hiraji continued that Kakeru was the same. He was beaten until he couldn't swim anymore. There must be a revenge, but now he is the manager of the swimming club. He changed his grudge to advance the swimming extracurricular. But Kaido, he failed to change his revenge into positive motivation. Hiraji said that Kaido is weak. Of course, Kaido didn't like it. He still thinks that Kakeru is weaker than him. Kaido pulls Kakeru's collar, but suddenly, Sakura interrupted and said that Kakeru isn't weak. Reina once told Sakura that because of her, Kakeru was injured. Kakeru made Reina have to fight harder for each competition, as if Kakeru's spirit was also in her. After that, Hiraji suddenly pointed a gun, because Gunji failed to guess the culprit, so today 5 students will die. Then, Kaido said it's his fault. Because of him, Reina is now dead, and Kaido is willing to be one of the 5 people. Now there are only 4 people left, said Hiraji. After that, Hiraji called the other 4 people, making them panic. Gunji heard their screams, then he desperately ran towards the school building where the students were taken hostage. Meanwhile, 5 students had been taken to the art room. Then, Gunji heard an explosion from the art room. Sakura saw the rubble caused by the explosion, and she saw body parts there. Outside, Gunji faces the CCTV and vows to catch Hiraji, so that crimes like this don't happen again. Then, in a room, Kakeru woke up and was confused while his 4 friends were still unconscious. He was even more confused when he saw that Ren was still alive. The other students woke up too, and also felt the same thing. They were confused and afraid. Hiraji went back to class, and the lessons on the 4th day began. Now, a new fact has been revealed. There was someone who provoked Kaido to make the video. So, they need to find out who the provocator was. Hiraji asked the provocator to raise hand, and suddenly Kai raised his hand and confessed it. All students in the class didn't expect the perpetrator to be found out so quickly. Kai's close friend was angry and didn't think Kai would do it. However, Hiraji is sure that it was not Kai who manipulated the video, because high school students won't be able to edit videos like that. Hiraji asked Kai to say who was the editor of that video, but Kai just kept his mouth shut. He didn't want to say it. Because of that, Hiraji said if Kai doesn't reveal the truth until 8 p.m., 10 students will die. Meanwhile, the teachers and police are increasingly overwhelmed because the parents continue to urge them to ask for news from their children. Not long after, 2 kids came there. They introduced themselves and looked for their older brother, Kai. Their mother was sick and stayed at home, so she couldn't come there. Then, Toru got a call from Hiraji. Toru said that Gunji was out of this investigation because yesterday he failed to save the 5 students. Hiraji spoke while taking medicine. Then, Toru asked if he was okay. It seemed like Hiraji had problems with his health. The scene moved to Gunji. He's now in police station, and this time, he investigates another case. At that time, he was interrogating a man who worked at the bar due to licensing issues. It was said that the bar was backed up by a group called Bombs. After interrogating that man, Gunji accidentally saw Fumika. There, Fumika came to ask for her cell phone back, but when she was about to go home, she heard something about Bombs. It seemed like Fumika knew something about this group. Bombs was a criminal group. They were like a teenage version of the Yakuza, and some young people knew about their crimes. There was a video recording of Rina. She told Hiraji about this mischievous gang. Then the male student who recorded it now tells Sakura about this. It was Kai who saved Rina from the gang. Sakura then approaches Kai and thanks him for saving Rina, but Kai doesn't seem to care, and he seems to be covering up the truth. The scene moved showing Kai's siblings. 2 teachers took the children back to their home. Kai's mother was sick, and Kai has 2 younger siblings. Kai's mother said that Kai once dreamed of becoming a dancer, but suddenly Kai's mother fell ill. So Kai was forced to work here and there to meet their daily needs. Finally, Kai buried his dream of becoming a dancer. In another place, Kai remembered something. At that time, Kai's friend, who's a dancer, asked if Kai is Reina's classmate. Kai's friend said there are lots of Reina's fans here. If Kai can bring Reina to meet them, Kai will get 200,000 yen, and he can become a dancer again. Kai was forced to agree because he really needed money for his family. Then, Kai took Reina to a quiet place. But unexpectedly, they turned out to be members of the Bombs gang, and they tried to forcefully take Reina. Kai didn't know this would happen, so he immediately beat them all to save Reina. Back to the present time, Hiraji tried to talk to Kai. Hiraji is wondering if Kai is hiding something. But while they're talking, suddenly Hiraji looked very sick, and Kai was just silent looking at him. After that, Hiraji rested for a moment in his room. Then his cell phone rang, and it was from Fumika. Hiraji thought it was from the police again, so he ignored it. But when he checked the mailbox, there was a voice note coming in, and it was Fumika's voice. Fumika is wondering if Hiraji is doing this all for her. If so, Fumika asked Hiraji to stop and not make himself suffer. Meanwhile, in class, Kai is being forced by his friends to say who manipulated Reina's video. But Kai remains silent. There is a commotion between them. Hiraji enters the class and ends their argument. However, Kai suddenly invites Hiraji to battle. If Hiraji wins, Kai will say everything. But if Kai wins, Hiraji has to free them all. Hiraji accepts the challenge and secretly calls Gunji. Then they start to fight. In the middle of the fight, Hiraji occasionally says that at that time, Kai invited Reina somewhere just to get money. Because of Kai, Reina was almost hurt. But Hiraji asked why did Kai end up saving her. Not only that, Hiraji confirmed to Kai that the person who manipulated Reina's video was a member of Bombs. At that time, the video was handed over to Bombs, and in return, Kai got money. Hiraji thought that Kai was jealous of Reina because she managed to achieve her dream of becoming a national athlete, while Kai's dream of becoming a dancer was destroyed. Kai finally admits it. It's true, he was jealous of Rina. When students his age are chasing their dream, Kai was forced to work for his family. Kai felt that life was unfair, but Hiraji asked Kai not to blame his family. Kai should blame himself for never sharing his sorrows and difficulties with others. Kai endured it all alone until he's trapped in hatred for Rina. Then, Kai screamed and said that everything's useless because no one will help him. After that, Kai's best friend suddenly approaches him. He felt like he wasn't considered a friend, even though he was willing to help, even if it wasn't with money. At least he would help Kai to look after his younger siblings. Then Hiraji said that he can't carry all his problems alone. Kai should ask for help if he feels he can't hold it anymore. But Hiraji wanted Kai to remember that he is the one who ruined Reina's life. So now for Rina, Kai has to tell the truth about the person who manipulated the video. But Kai is screaming. He said if he reveals it, his family will definitely be in danger. Because previously, Kai was threatened by this perpetrator not to tell the truth. Otherwise, his family will be in danger. Hiraji asked Kai to trust him, but Kai said how can he believe in a murderer? But Sakura suddenly said that Hiraji was not a murderer. Sakura secretly came to the art room, and it turned out that the students that Hiraji killed yesterday were still alive. They were safe in Hiraji's room. The person who edited the video was named Kishi, the leader of Balm's gang. Hiraji got up and took his cell phone and he talked to Gunji. Now, Gunji understands, and with this information, the police were able to raid the Balms. Gunji and the other police came to Balm's base camp. It turned out that the man who at that time was interrogated by Gunji was the leader of Balms. Gunji managed to paralyze everyone there. This news was immediately conveyed to Hiraji. Then Hiraji said to Kai that no one can threaten his family anymore. And now, all the students in the class are demanding an explanation from Hiraji about what Sakura said before. Hiraji said that he was going to explain everything, but suddenly Hiraji collapsed and fainted. On the other hand, the news became more widespread. One of the narcissistic teachers, Takeki, became the news anchor at his own school. While Hiraji was fainting, several students tried to break into Hiraji's room to free 6 other students, who were thought to have been killed. Meanwhile, in the class, Yuzuki suddenly asked Kai how far is his relationship with Kishi. Kai answered that he only met Kishi a few times and they aren't close. Yuzuki looked worried while holding a necklace. Meanwhile, in the art room, they finally managed to break down the door. They also took their cell phones again, but they couldn't find their 6 friends. After that, they saw a door on the floor. They tried to open it, but it was locked tightly. But suddenly, a student named Aizawa appeared and said if they go any further, he will blow up this room. Everyone was confused as to why all of a sudden Aizawa was doing this. Suddenly, Aizawa was ambushed and beaten up. Other students tried to take off his watch. He was also told to open the door on the floor, and when it was opened, the 6 missing students were seen down there. Suzum came down there and met her boyfriend again. She also asked Ren to get out of there, but Ren didn't seem happy. The other students also came down and invited those 6 students to go up and out from there. But strangely, they looked silent, as if they didn't want to get out of there. But in the end, they wanted to go upstairs to the art room. But it's clear there's something they're hiding. Then they started talking that actually, Hiraji did all this for them. At that time, when the 5 of them had just woken up, Hiraji said that his purpose in doing all this was to reveal Reina's murder. They were all confused. Hiraji said that this case had to be revealed, because otherwise, the next victim might be one of them. One student said, why don't Hiraji just report it to the police? But Hiraji thought that the police couldn't identify who the murderer was. Hiraji admits that he won't have much longer to live. That is why Hiraji taught them the last lesson through Reina's death, so that they all learn about something important in their life. The students then remembered Hiraji's struggle to make them realize it. Suddenly, Suzun asked Yuzuki about his boyfriend's name, and Suzun remembered that his name is Kishi. Because of that, Yuzuki looked panicked and suddenly ran away. She gripped her necklace tightly and remembered the first time she met him. At that time, Yuzuki really needed money and wanted to become a model. Kishi was there and said if Yuzuki wanted to be his girlfriend, he could help her. Then they started dating, and several students in class 3 and knew about this. But it turned out that Yuzuki secretly hated Reina. One day, Kishi gave Yuzuki a necklace and said that she had to take care of this necklace. Back to the present, and all the students in the art room are now discussing. Some of them decided to stay, but there are some who want to just go home. Yuzuki went back to the class and saw Hiraji still unconscious. Yuzuki wondered why everyone is obsessed with Reina. Yuzuki hates Reina. She said that she's sick of seeing her always full of motivation. But Sakura then asked if Yuzuki also has a motivation, that is to become a model. Yuzuki answered that she really wanted it, but she sacrificed a lot. Yuzuki went back to the art room and saw several students arguing because there are some who want to go home and some who want to stay. The situation is getting more and more chaotic until finally Kai screams. If they keep making noise, Kai will blow up this room so that no one can go home. Hiraji suddenly appears, still limping. Hiraji said Kai didn't need to do anything. And before deciding who wants to go home, Hiraji wanted them to find out information from Yuzuki first. Hiraji asks if Yuzuki is afraid of Kishi, and that her connection will be lost, so she can't be a model anymore. Yuzuki is indeed really afraid of betraying Kishi. She struggled to become a model so far because of the help from Kishi and Balls. All this time, she got a lot of money and popularity from them. Besides, she has nothing to do with that fake video, so Yuzuki is not guilty. Yuzuki pleased her friends to laugh at her. She said that her ways were dirty, but this was how she survived. Hiraji doesn't blame Yuzuki because everyone struggles with ups and downs. If they look at it, it's a shame. But it's good, and there's nothing wrong with Yuzuki's way of living. Hearing that, Yuzuki's tears flowed freely. This was the first time Yuzuki felt appreciated. She took her necklace and broke it down. A memory card was stored in that necklace. Hiraji immediately turned on his laptop and saw a list, and it was a list of Balm's customers so that Balms would make fake videos for them. What was surprising was that one of the customers was a high school teacher from Kaio Senior High School. Hiraji immediately sent the file to the police. The news immediately spread on the internet that Reina's murderer was a teacher at her own school. Hiraji also uploaded the list to Mind Voice. He even recorded a video of himself and said that Reina's killer was a teacher. Takechi, the most narcissistic teacher, was invited again on a TV show and said it's impossible for a teacher to be a murderer. Meanwhile in the class, Hiraji is starting his lessons again. He is now allowing the students to take a shower and allowing them to use their cell phones again. He also took a group photo and uploaded it to Mind Voice. Many positive comments have appeared, and now many people support Hiraji. They now know that Hiraji took his students hostage in order to uncover Reina's murder case. Even Hiraji is considered a hero now. Returning to the class. Now Hiraji calls the teachers and says one of them is the perpetrator who asked the Balms to make a fake video about Reina. And today, no later than 8 p.m., the perpetrator must turn himself in, otherwise the class will explode and the students will be killed. The students are now confused again. Hasn't their relationship with Hiraji improved? Hiraji then said he's using the students to uncover the truth. He's also confiscating their phones again. If the students don't want to die, they need to try to find out who the teacher is who made the fake video. They now started discussing, and finally, there were several teachers who might be the suspects. Two of them were the teacher and extracurricular swimming coach, Mr. Masaru, and the narcissistic teacher, Mr. Takechi. The students who took part in extracurricular swimming said that Mr. Masaru was a strict and disciplined coach. They then confirmed that Suzune took part in swimming extracurricular in first grade. So why doesn't she do it now? Maybe because there were rumors that she was busy dating, so Mr. Masaru expelled her. Suzune answered that Mr. Masaru definitely wanted to expel Reina too, because she didn't meet his expectations, so he made a fake video so that Reina would be expelled. Suzune got emotional remembering the past, when she first joined the swimming extracurricular activity. At that time, she trained very hard, and was even scolded because her abilities did not meet Mr. Masaru's expectations. But she continued to fight every training until late night in order to become a great athlete. Then she was picked up by her boyfriend, Ren. One day, Susan came to practice, but immediately got scolded because yesterday she skipped. Mr. Masaru threw a lot of photos showing Susan was dating Ren. Mr. Masaru said that their swimming club doesn't need people who just like dating. But Susan explained that yesterday she skipped class because Ren took her to the hospital. But Mr. Masaru expelled Susan from the swimming extracurricular. Those memories made Susan hate Mr. in the toilet. She met a student named Yuki, who apparently managed to take her cell phone secretly. Then, Susan had an idea. She recorded herself saying that Rena's murderer was the extracurricular swimming teacher, Mr. Masaru. Yuki, who recorded it, looked shocked. Susan asked Yuki to upload the video to Mind Voice so that they don't get killed. In his room, it turns out Hiraji saw all the incidents in the toilet with Sakura, who happened to take the dinner. On the other hand, Gunji and his partner were investigating a film studio because Hiraji used to work there. According to an actor there, Hiraji is an actor who also plays a monster in the film. They also got important information that the owner of the film studio is Fumika's father. This means that it is possible that Fumika's father has something to do with Hiraji's action. The scene back to the class again. It is now almost 8 p.m. and Hiraji sees that the students are already discussing the murderer. Hiraji shows his cell phone. There is a recording of Susan. This afternoon, she recorded it and said that Mr. Masaru is the murderer. Then, Susan said that she's just expressing her opinion. Hiraji then said that because of Susan's recording, Mr. Masaru was now being slandered by people. After that, Hiraji called the teachers again and asked the real perpetrator to surrender, but no teacher wants to admit it. Hiraji said it seems the students here have concluded that Mr. Masaru is the culprit. Hiraji invited Susan to come closer and explain everything. Susan came forward and started talking. Susan asked Mr. Masaru confesses that he was the one who asked the bombs to manipulate Rena's video. If he didn't admit it, otherwise all students would die. Susan thought that Mr. Masaru definitely suppressed Rena, just like he did before. Just because Susan missed a day, and because she went to the hospital, Mr. Masaru immediately expelled her. Even though Susan's dream is to become a swimmer, she trained every day to be the best, but Mr. Masaru took away her dream. Susan expressed her heart while crying. Masaru then said to Susan that he also knew how hard she trained. Susan was the student who struggled the most, but the day she went to the hospital, her mother called Masaru and told him to go to the hospital. According to the doctor, Susan has a heart disease and heavy exercise will be dangerous for her life. If Masaru told her, Susan will definitely be stubborn and keep practicing. So, at that time, Masaru was forced to expel Susan for the sake of her life. Hiraji closed the laptop and asked Susan if she still wanted to accuse Mr. Masaru. But Susan argued that she didn't know this, but Susan already made the video. Fortunately, the video hasn't been uploaded yet because Hiraji immediately confiscated the phone this afternoon. Susan felt relieved. Here, suddenly Hiraji kicked Susan. Hiraji was mad. The fact that Susan recorded the video of the accusation and intended to spread it on the internet is still there. Susan is not aware of what will happen if this video is really spread. Because of her words, an innocent man was almost humiliated. He and his family could all be hurt because of Susan's carelessness, so she has to think before she acts. And also, she should be responsible for what she does. Hiraji warned Susan not to forget this because what she did could ruin other people's lives. Hiraji turned on his laptop again and spoke to the teachers. It's a shame because the perpetrator didn't want to admit it, so according to the agreement, Hiraji will blow up the class. And suddenly, a loud bang was heard. The teachers immediately ran out towards the direction of the sound. However, it turned out that the class that exploded was class 3B, Hiraji said through the loudspeaker. With this, it can be seen that the teachers let the students die and only think about themselves. On the other hand, comments on the internet were popping up, most of which are now supporting Hiraji. Meanwhile, Gunji managed to get information that Fumika's father recently bought a lot of explosives. While at home, Fumika's father was seen uploading a video in Mind Voice. And suddenly, Hiraji said that the real perpetrator is Mr. Takechi. Hiraji's statement made the netizens confused. Plus, there was CCTV footage showing a man and a female student entering a building. Not long after, only the man was seen coming out of the building and the student disappeared. There were many speculations. Their faces were not clear, but many thought that Rina and Takechi were the people in the video. Takeshi didn't accept this, so in television, he immediately stated that he was not the cause of Rina's death. While in class, in front of the students, Hiraji called Takechi. Hiraji said to Takechi that tonight, until 8 p.m., Takechi must confess all her sins. After that, Hiraji played a video recording of the day when Rina died. Rina spoke to Hiraji that she will meet someone who has made her fake video. He is a teacher at this school. CCTV footage is shown, and when it was zoomed in, Rina's name was seen on the bag. Towards evening, Takechi was called again by Hiraji, asking him to come to the school building alone. He did so, and in the room, there were only Hiraji and Takechi. Takechi kept denying and said that he was not the person in the video. Hiraji said that Takechi ever offered a scholarship to Reina to enter university. However, Reina refused it. Reina refused it not because she wasn't interested, but because she knew there were bad intentions behind it. Almost all students who got the scholarships in their first year at university dropped out because they couldn't compete with other students. Their lives became difficult, and they felt like they were poor people. It failed because Takechi didn't give the scholarship to the right students, while Takechi kept doing it because for every student he invited, he would get a lot of money. Takeshi even bribed Reina to join the scholarship, but Reina threatened that she would report this case to the education department. Suddenly, there's an incoming message in Hiraji's phone. When he opened it, it was a zoomed image and the resolution was improved. And sure enough, it was Takeshi's face, but Takeshi still denied it. He said it's true that he asked the Balms to make a fake video of Reina taking dope, but suddenly Hiraji turned around and looked up. It turned out there was a camera there, and all their conversations were broadcast live on the Mind Voice. Millions of people watched Takeshi's confession that he was the one who ordered the fake video, and it was proof that Takeshi was guilty. Takeshi didn't accept being framed like this. He said that he wasn't wrong because he only gave scholarships to the students. It was their own fault if they can't follow the lessons at the university. So, Takeshi just needs to look for other students. Hiraji was angry and said that students are human, not something that he can use to get money. They are still young and don't know the right path. As teachers, they have to guide the students so that they don't walk on the wrong path so they won't fail in life. The police then came and arrested Takechi, while Hiraji went back into the building. Meanwhile, the next day, Gunji came to Fumika's house. Gunji asked about Fumika's relationship with Takechi. Then, Fumika said she met him during the teacher training. After that, he contacted Fumika and asked if there were any students who wanted to get a scholarship. Takechi gave her bribes to force Fumika's students to take part in the scholarship. Of course, Fumika refused it. In the class, a student named Runa looked serious with a laptop. She was an IT expert and was investigating the authenticity of Reina's video with a man. Unexpectedly, she discovered a surprising fact. On the other hand, Gunji was interrogating Takechi. Here, Gunji has new facts. He has a video of Fumika and a student walking together. This video was also edited to bring down Fumika's name. This is what makes Fumika have mental disorders, and this video was also made by Balms at Takechi's request. Back to the class, Runa showed her friends a surprising discovery. The man they thought was Takechi turned out to be Hiraji. So, was it actually Hiraji who killed Reina? All the students were. Suddenly, Hiraji came to the class, and the students shouted asking for an explanation of what really happened. Meanwhile, Gunji meets Toru and says he has investigated this case, and it turns out that Fumika's father was involved. But Fumika's father now was only an adoptive father, and Toru is Fumika's biological father. Toru conspired with Hiraji to help Fumika to catch Takechi. But Toru is still guilty because he conspired with Hiraji. Not long after, the police from the head office appeared and immediately arrested Toru. Hiraji's case has now been taken over by the central police station. Returning to the class, All students are now confused about what to do after finding out that the man in the video is Hiraji. A student named Soma said that he was going to upload this fact to the Mind Voice. The situation immediately heated up. There were some students who agreed, but some of them didn't agree. Those who didn't agree felt that Hiraji was a teacher who risked his life for them all. It was seen that while he was holding them hostage, he always taught the value of life to the students. If this fact was uploaded, Hiraji would be a murder suspect. They investigated the details of the video again, and it turned out that there was another oddity. It was seen that the bag Rena was wearing was an extracurricular swimming bag, while when she came home from school, she had to wear the school bag. It means that the girl in the video wasn't Rena either. So this video is probably fake. They also contacted the local shop and asked if there was CCTV around there. It turns out there has never been CCTV in the area. They finally thought that this video was deliberately made by Hiraji to trap Takeshi. Takeshi had been using a fake video to bring down Reina. Hiraji wants revenge and wants to take down Takeshi with a manipulated video too. An eye for an eye and a fake video for a fake video, that's Hiraji's goal. In the police station, the head office has now deployed a special team to free the students, but unexpectedly, Gunji also comes to the school building, and now he's facing Hiraji. Gunji says whatever Hiraji's intention, what he did was a mistake. So, Gunji has to arrest you. They fight, but in the end, Gunji is defeated. And now he is handcuffed in Hiraji's room. Back at the head office, they are now withdrawing their special troops because they know that Gunji is now being held hostage by Hiraji. Meanwhile, Fumika's adoptive father is seen uploaded a clearer version of the video, which shows that Hiraji is the man in that video. The public became confused, and suddenly they commented that Hiraji was a criminal and a murderer. Meanwhile, Hiraji is unconscious and being cared for by Sakura after fighting with Gunji. Then, Hiraji's cell phone rang. Sakura was about to take it, but Hiraji regained his consciousness. Fumika's father called him and said that he had uploaded a clearer version of the video. He thanked Hiraji for going this far for Fumika. After that, Hiraji returned to class, and he knows that the video showing him is currently viral. This is all part of his plan. Hiraji now tells everything. At first, Hiraji's girlfriend, Fumika, was slandered as if she was acting indecently with a student, and Takeshi was the one who made that fake video. Due to the fake video, Fumika had a mental disorder. Then, to arrest Takeshi, 6 months ago, Hiraji moved to Kaio High School. Here, Hiraji met Reina. When Reina confided in Hiraji that there was a fake video about her using drugs, Hiraji remembered Fumika's case. Reina said that because of the video, she wasn't herself anymore. Reina started hearing voices, and in other words, Reina had a mental disorder too. After that, Reina said that she would meet the perpetrator, Takeshi. But the meeting never happened. That day, Reina was found dead. Hiraji said if only he had accompanied Reina that day, maybe she wouldn't have died. But Hiraji realized that maybe Reina's fate would not have changed because the video had broken her. Hiraji admitted that he suffered from cancer, and he didn't have much time left. But why did Reina die first? She's still young and still has a future. Hiraji regrets why he wasn't the one who died first. But Reina's death made Hiraji realize that as a teacher, he hadn't done anything. And for the past few days, Hiraji made the students scared. Hiraji really apologized, but the students have now changed and Hiraji is proud of them. Hiraji was grateful that they had allowed him to be their teacher. Hiraji now went back to his room, where Gunji is held there. Hiraji points a rifle and asks Gunji to come with him. Hiraji heads down the hall, but Sakura comes and tries to hold him back. She knew that Hiraji would definitely do something reckless. But suddenly, Hiraji blew up the roof, making Sakura's way blocked. Now, Hiraji and Gunji were on the roof of the school building. The police, teachers, and the media immediately highlighted it. Even now, the action was broadcast live on the Mind Voice. Hiraji laughed like crazy and fired his rifle. Then, suddenly, a shot hit him in the chest and he instantly collapsed. But not long after, he woke up again, and it turned out he was already wearing a bulletproof vest. Hiraji said that tomorrow, at 8 o'clock, he will go live on Mind Voice and tell all the truth that he has been struggling. At the same time, Sakura unexpectedly told her friends something that she had been keeping secret. She said that actually she was the one who killed Reina. Of course, this shocked the whole class. On the day Reina died, Reina met Sakura. Sakura said she wanted to talk to her and invited her to the roof of the building. There, Sakura apologized for all this time ignoring Reina, because honestly she was afraid of being bullied by other students. But Reina had hallucinations as if Sakura had said negative things to her. It turned out that Reina had had a mental disorder. She always felt that there were voices bullying her, so she climbed onto the fence and threw herself down. Sakura ran to hold Reina's hand. At that time, Reina said softly that she's tired, she's in pain, and wants to find a way out. Unfortunately, Reina's hand fell off. Sakura saw her best friend fall and die. All the students in the class heard it and said that it wasn't Sakura's fault. Meanwhile, Hiraji also told Gunji everything about the reason why he was holding the students hostage and the purpose of all this. Gunji finally believes in Hiraji, and it was already 8 a.m. Hiraji returned to the roof and, as promised, he would reveal everything. It turned out he had prepared the camera and started the live broadcast. First, he uploaded a video. Previously, the video showed a man and a female student. This video was made by Hiraji on purpose to trap Takechi. Immediately, many negative comments appeared for Hiraji because he had cheated them. Hiraji laughs and says this is the reason for the hostage taking. Initially, they considered Hiraji a villain, but in the middle, netizens changed their minds and considered Hiraji a hero for exposing Takechi's crimes. But now, they again consider Hiraji a villain. So during these 10 days, they had changed their minds many times. Meanwhile, the students are now trying to free themselves by clearing the rubble. Hiraji is still going live and says that the one who killed Reina was actually the audience. The negative comments from the audience were like millions of knives that stabbed Reina's heart over and over again until she died. They bullied her because of one video that wasn't even necessarily true and made her decide to end her life. Instead of causing harm, shouldn't they use their mouths and hands to give happiness to others? Hiraji knows from many people watching this live, many of them will not care about his words. But among these millions, there is only one who is aware, and one day there will be 10 people, 100 people, and 1,000 people. It means Hiraji is not standing here in vain. Hiraji begged them to remember what he said. Meanwhile, the students finally managed to find a way out. Sakura was the first to come to Hiraji. She saw Hiraji slowly walk to the edge of the building and drop himself. Sakura immediately ran to reach Hiraji's hand. Hiraji hanging on Sakura's hand, the same incident that Sakura experienced with Reina. Sakura didn't want to repeat the same mistake and fought as hard as she could to hold Hiraji from falling. Kai appeared, followed by other students until finally they were able to save Hiraji. Hiraji asked if at that time Sakura let go of Reina's hand. Sakura answered that she didn't let go of Reina's hand because she wanted Reina to stay alive. Hiraji said that Sakura didn't kill Reina, instead Sakura tried to save her with her hands. So Sakura should stop blaming herself. While downstairs, it turned out that Fumika was there and had been watching Hiraji's actions. Then Takechi appeared and apologized for hurting Fumika. Gunji then comes on the roof and says that Hiraji has caused all this chaos and must be arrested. Hiraji is taken downstairs and Fumika meets Hiraji. Fumika thanks Hiraji for all his efforts. 3 years have passed and they are now reunited. They also remember Hiraji, who has now died a year after the hostage-taking due to cancer he suffered. In the class, Sakura was alone as if talking to Hiraji. She said that at this time, things have not changed much. People are still busy with their own affairs, still commenting on this, and that as they please. But one thing is certain, during those 10 days, she and all her classmates had the most precious youth. And Sakura hopes that one day, Hiraji's message will reach other people too. Elsewhere, someone typed a negative comment, holding his finger to post it. Then he deletes that message and the film is ended. Well, that's the whole storyline of the drama Hiraji Classroom. The message of the film is very strong and relatable to what is happening now. Most
There was a group of sadistic assassins which had a special and brutal method to kill their targets. When they killed their victims, they would peel the tattooed skin off their victims as proof of a contract fulfilled. The group consisted of a former forensic pathologist, a cruel and brutal MMA champion, a hot-headed gunman, and a mute teenage boy who was also a master of medicine. Their group was called Smoking. One evening, several men visited a mysterious room that was located on the second floor of a building. They came there to meet a middle-aged man called Sabe. There was a weird transparent jar in that room. That transparent jar contained a tattooed skin of a human. One of those men was called Kobayashi. He was the one who hired Sabe and his group as his hitman. The skin inside of that jar was the skin of the person whom he wanted Sabe and his group to kill. When Kobayashi asked him about that skin, Sabe said that it was the skin of his target. Sabe showed that skin to Kobayashi as the proof that he had done his job. Kobayashi laughed when he heard Sabe's answer. He was satisfied with his job. Then, he told his subordinates to give a sum of money to Sabe as the payment for using his service. Then, he told Sabe to leave that place soon. Sabe refused to accept that money. The amount of that money was not the same as the amount of the money that Kobayashi promised him to pay. He refused to accept that money and leave that place until Kobayashi gave him the money he had promised. Kobayashi screamed after he heard that. All of his subordinates in that room suddenly pointed their guns at Sabe. But Sabe wasn't afraid of them. He kept smoking his cigar and sitting quietly on his couch. Apparently, he wasn't alone there. He and his group had expected that this was going to happen. So, they had prepared themselves. Goro, the cruel and brutal MMA champion, suddenly came to that room and beat up Kobayashi's subordinates. Not long after that, Hacho the gunman also came to that place. He broke the window pane and entered that room through the window. He helped Goro to kill all of Kobayashi's subordinates. Then, Ifhuman, the master of medicine, did his job to make Kobayashi passed out by using the medicine that he had made. After a while, Kobayashi finally woke up from his faint. He found himself was being tied in a container. He saw Sabe and his group there. Then, Ifhuman came to that place. He brought a mysterious object that was covered with marine cloth. Apparently, it was a transparent jar that contained a tattooed skin of Kobayashi. Kobayashi was shocked when he saw that. He realized that his back skin had been peeled off by Sabe and his group. Then, Sabe told him that he and his group weren't only taking the tattooed skin off their victims, but they were also taking their mask off. Once their skin and mask were removed, the true rotten and evil selves of their victims would be revealed to the world. Turned out, Sabe and his group lived in a homeless shelter in Japan. Every day, they were searching for and collecting discarded items in that area. They pretended to be scavengers to hide their true identity as a group of brutal hitmen. Each of them had different backstories. Ifhuman was a mute teenage boy who was unable to speak because of the trauma that he experienced when he was a child. He knew a lot of drugs and medicine. Hacho and Goro's backstories would be revealed later. They had a pretty weird friendship. There was no single day that they didn't get into a fight. Meanwhile, Sabe was a former doctor who found and gathered all of them together. He was the leader of the group. Ifhuman called him Uncle Sabe. That morning, Uncle Sabe suddenly came to their tent. He asked Ifhuman to go camping in the mountains with him. Ifhuman was surprised with that sudden request. The snowy area near the mountains was the favorite spot for people to go camping. One of the visitors who went camping there was this beautiful woman. She came out of her tent and tried to make a cup of coffee. But unluckily, she ran out of the gas. So, she visited someone's house and knocked on the door. A man opened the door and asked what could he help. He was called Sarukawa. That woman said that she needed gas for her stove. Sarukawa told her to come inside of the house. Before he closed the door, he made sure that nobody saw that woman there. In the evening, while Sarukawa was having a dinner alone, he suddenly heard someone knocked on his door. He left his dinner immediately to clean himself. Apparently, he was a cold-blooded killer. He murdered the woman who came to his house that morning and left her body in his bathroom. After Sarukawa got rid of his apron and cleaned himself, he opened the door. He saw Uncle Sabe and Ifhuman there. Uncle Sabe told him that he and Ifhuman were a father and a son who went camping in that area. He came to Sarukawa's house to borrow a first aid kit because Ifhuman's ankle got injured. Sarukawa told them to come inside of his house. He was being friendly with Uncle Sabe and Ifhuman. He talked to Ifhuman, but Ifhuman didn't respond to him. Uncle Sabe apologized to him because of that. He told him that Hifuman was unable to speak. After Uncle Sabe finished bandaging Hifuman's ankle, he thanked Sarukawa and tried to leave that place. But Sarukawa stopped him right away. He invited Uncle Sabe and Hifuman to have dinner with him. Uncle Sabe smiled and accepted his offer. Apparently, Uncle Sabe and his group had targeted Sarukawa. They had chosen Sarukawa as their next target. 3 years ago, Sarukawa killed and raped Uncle Sabe's boss. After he committed those heinous crimes, he ran away and disappeared without a trace. Uncle Sabe and his group were looking for him, but they couldn't find him anywhere. But a few days ago, they finally received information about Sarukawa. They heard that Sarukawa was hiding out deep in the mountains. But when Uncle Sabe saw his old picture, he doubted that it was Sarukawa because his face was different. Hacho said that Sarukawa might have had plastic surgery to change his face. Sabe thought that it was possible that the man in that picture was Sarukawa, but they needed to make sure about it first. They could find the answer by checking if the tattoo on that man's back was identical to Sarukawa's tattoo. While Uncle Sabe and Hifuman were in Sarukawa's house, Hacho and Goro were waiting for them in the van that they parked nearby. Hacho began to get impatient. He thought that it was useless for them to wait like that. But he couldn't do anything because they needed to wait for Uncle Sabe's instruction first. After that, Hacho and Goro got into a fight like usual. At Sarukawa's house, Sarukawa, Uncle Sabe, and Hifuman were having dinner. Sarukawa told them about some tourist attractions that Uncle Sabe and Hifuman could visit in that area. Uncle Sabe offered a bottle of alcohol to him. It seemed that he had put something into that bottle. Then, Uncle Sabe said that he would go to his van to get another bottle of alcohol. While he was gone, Sarukawa began to harass Hifuman. He knew that Hifuman was unable to speak, so it was going to be easy for him to prey on him. He planned to kill Hifuman first. After that, he was going to kill Uncle Sabe. Hifuman was trying to escape from him. He went to a room to hide from him. In that room, he saw many items that belonged to Sarukawa's victims. Sarukawa finally found out that Hifuman was hiding in that room. He broke the glass of the door and tried to enter that room. Hifuman was frightened by that. He tried to scream, but his voice didn't come out. Sarukawa managed to open the door and walk toward him. But suddenly, Uncle Sabe arrived in that room. He called Sarukawa's full name out loud. He now believed that Sarukawa was the former Yakuza member that he and his group were looking for because of his tattoo. Sarukawa was surprised when he heard that. He wondered how Uncle Sabe could know him. Uncle Sabe told Sarukawa that he and his group were paid by someone to hunt and kill him. After Sarukawa heard that, he walked toward Uncle Sabe and tried to attack him. But before he managed to do that, he suddenly fell. He couldn't move his legs. Uncle Sabe told him that he was being poisoned by a nerve block. Because of that, Sarukawa couldn't move his body. Sarukawa tried to run away from that place, but it was difficult for him to control his body. So, in order to get rid of the effect of the anesthesia, he cut his chest with a butcher knife. The effect of the anesthesia finally wore off. He managed to move his body and attacked Uncle Sabe with the butcher knife. While Uncle Sabe was being violently attacked by Sarukawa, he told Hifuman to run away from that place. But Hifuman got paralyzed because he was too frightened and traumatized. The horrible incident in front of him reminded him of the time when his mother was being abused by a man. When Sarukawa was about to kill Uncle Sabe with his butcher knife, Hacho and Goro suddenly came to that place. They broke the door by using a chainsaw. But instead of attacking Sarukawa immediately, Hacho and Goro got into an argument. Before they came to Sarukawa's house, Hacho bet that Uncle Sabe's plan didn't work. If he was right, then Goro had to give him a pack of cigarettes. When they arrived there, they argued about whether or not Uncle Sabe's plan worked. Hacho believed that Uncle Sabe had failed. So, he asked Goro to give him a pack of cigarettes. Sarukawa was mad when he saw Hacho and Goro arguing with each other. He tried to attack them, but Goro managed to attack him first. After that, Uncle Sabe and his group took him to the container. They put him on the table and prepared him for the surgery that they were going to perform on him. Like usual, before Uncle Sabe and his group killed their target, they would peel their skin off first. After that, they would show that skin to the person who hired them as the proof that they had killed their target. Sarukawa was angry when he knew that he was going to be skinned. Uncle Sabe said that they needed to do this because Sarukawa had killed his boss's wife and many people who went camping in the mountains. Because of those heinous crimes that he had committed, Uncle Sabe was going to peel his skin off without anesthetizing him first. Then, Uncle Sabe began to cut and remove Sarukawa's skin. Sarukawa screamed in pain when he did that. Hacho found pleasure in watching that. Goro was also watching with him. They couldn't tell who was more crazy and violent between Sarukawa and Uncle Sabe. Meanwhile, Hafuman was waiting for them in another room. He was still traumatized by the horrible incident that he saw earlier. Because of that incident, he couldn't stop thinking about his past. When he was a child, when a stranger abused his mother told him to hide inside of a cupboard. While hiding inside of that cupboard, Hafuman saw that man beating up and stabbing his mother for several times with a knife until his mother died. Until this day, Hafuman still often had a nightmare because of that traumatic incident. A few days later, Uncle Sabe and Hafuman visited a strawberry garden. In that strawberry garden, visitors were allowed to pick the strawberries and bring those strawberries home. The owner of that strawberry garden was a bald man called Inukai Ryoji. Ryoji complained because he had been getting less visitors lately. Nobody even visited his strawberry garden that day except Uncle Sabe and Hafuman. Not long after that, Hacho also came to that place. He was being nice to Ryoji. He said that he wanted to buy marijuana from him. Ryoji said that he didn't know anything about marijuana. Hacho then showed him a sum of money in his wallet. He knew that Ryoji was going to be tempted by the amount of the money that he showed him. He said that he wanted to buy a lot of marijuana from him. Then, Ryoji asked him to follow him. But Hacho stopped him right away. He finally told him about the real reason why he came to that place. He said that he was going to kill Ryoji. He knew that Ryoji had killed many visitors who came to his strawberry garden. Ryoji was surprised when he heard that. He was getting more surprised when Hacho aimed his gun at him and called him by his real name. Hacho told him that he was paid by someone to kill him. One of the visitors whom Ryoji had killed was a gangster. Hacho said that he was hired by a member of Ryoji's victim's gang. Ryoji was getting afraid. He called his friend to help him. But unfortunately, his friend had been killed by Goro. Suddenly, Hafuman came to that place and sprayed Ryoji with liquid fertilizer. This morning, while Hafuman and Goro were searching for and collecting discarded items in the alley, they found a severely injured man lying unconscious there. They took that man into their makeshift home right away. Hacho was mad because Hafuman and Goro brought a stranger home. Goro said that he couldn't do anything because Hafuman insisted on helping that man. As a former doctor, Sabe checked that man's condition immediately. A few days later, a young man was cleaning the floor. He was called Taiki. His boss seemed unsatisfied with his work. He thought that the floor was still dirty. So, he punished Taiki by kicking him hard. Apparently, he was a leader of a Yakuza subgroup called Todakiri. After he kicked his subordinate, he greeted his guest in his room. Turned out, his guest was Uncle Sabe. Uncle Sabe came there to tell him that he had done his job. As usual, he brought a transparent jar that contained a tattooed skin of his target as the proof. The leader of Todakiri was happy when he saw that. He knew that it was the skin of his enemy. He had been wanting to kill that man for a long time. He couldn't believe that his enemy finally died. Taiki was trying to help to light his cigarette, but he was unable to do it. Because of that, his boss punched him on the face. The leader of Todakiri then asked Uncle Sabe how much he had to pay him. He was annoyed when Uncle Sabe said that he had to pay him 10 million yen. He thought that Uncle Sabe was messing with him. He was getting more annoyed when Uncle Sabe mocked his status and reputation. Uncle Sabe called him rude and savage. He wondered how a gangster who occupied many areas in Japan could be so poor. The members of Todakiri were angry when they heard that. They attacked and kidnapped Uncle Sabe immediately. Apparently, the leader of Todakiri had been targeted by Uncle Sable and his group. They came to that place to execute their plan. Hacho and Goro were waiting in their van that they parked nearby. Meanwhile, Hafuman was waiting in another car. At Todakiri's office, Uncle Sabe was brought to a torture chamber. The members of Todakiri tied him to a chair and began to torture him. The leader of Todakiri mocked him. He didn't remember that he had any problems with Uncle Sabe and his group. He threatened to kill Uncle Sabe and the rest of his group if they messed with Todakiri. The leader of Todakiri wanted to give Uncle Sabe a chance. He said that he would let Uncle Sabe alive if he was willing to work together with him. But Uncle Sabe refused his offer right away. The leader of Todakiri then told Taiki to torture and kill Uncle Sabe with a hammer. Taiki's body was trembling. He was scared. The leader of Todakiri said that he would kill him if he refused to kill Uncle Sabe. Taiki was getting more scared when he heard that. He didn't know what he was going to do. He didn't want to kill, but he was afraid of getting killed by Todakiri. In that chaotic situation, Hacho suddenly shot the window of Todakiri's office. A member of Todakiri reported that to their leader immediately. He said that they were under attack. All members of Todakiri in the torture chamber left that room right away. They wanted to chase Hacho and Garo. Hacho and Garo came out of their van and entered that building. As an MMA champion, Garo managed to defeat the members of Todakiri easily. He asked them where the leader was. In the torture chamber, Taiki was still scared because the leader of Todakiri still forced him to kill Uncle Sabe. The leader of Todakiri kicked him hard on the back. Taiki finally took the hammer and attacked the leader of Todakiri with it. Besides being sick and tired of being abused by his boss, it seemed like he held a grudge against him. Taiki had never wanted this kind of life. His brother was the one who took him to this world back then. Taiki accepted that job because he had no other options. His brother said that he despised their abusive and sadistic boss too, but Taiki had to stay because they needed to survive. Unfortunately, the leader of Todakiri was around when Taiki's brother said that. He was angry because of what his brother said about him. He attacked Taiki's brother with a hammer right away. After holding his grudge all this time, Taiki finally decided to attack the leader of Todakiri. But since he didn't know how to fight, the leader of Todakiri managed to fight him back and attack him with his hammer. But when he was about to kill Taiki, Hacho and Garo arrived in that room. They attacked him right away and took him to the container. Taiki passed out. When he woke up from his faint, he found himself in a strange place. He saw Uncle Sabe and his group there. He screamed when he saw the leader of Todakiri there too. He asked Uncle Sabe about what actually happened. Apparently, Taiki's brother was still alive. His brother told him about what happened. He said that he was the one who hired Uncle Sabe and his group to kill the leader of Todakiri. He asked Uncle Sabe to let Taiki go. He said that he didn't have money to pay Uncle Sabe and his group right now, but he promised that he would pay them soon. He promised that he and Taiki would work so hard so they could pay Uncle Sabe and his group. Uncle Sabe and his group appreciated Taiki and his brother's determination. He also admired their brotherhood. Taiki and his brother then thanked Tefuman because he had saved Taiki's brother. Uncle Sabe told them that he and his group were going to do their job. The leader of Todakiri finally woke up from his faint. He found himself was being tied in a container. Uncle Sabe told him that he was there because he had committed many heinous crimes. So, before the leader of Todakiri was sent to hell, he needed to be punished for everything he did first. Hacho put a mirror in front of the leader of Todakiri. He wanted him to see his own face when he suffered. After that, Uncle Sabe began to torture him by slitting and removing his skin. The leader of Todakiri screamed in pain when Uncle Sabe did that. After Uncle Sabe and his group finished doing their job, they returned to their tent. Hacho told Uncle Sabe that he doubted that Taiki and his brother would pay them. He suggested that they rob their target too if they had to deal with this kind of case again in the future. Then, Uncle Sabe watched Tefuman worked. Suddenly, he had a flashback about the time when he still worked as a forensic pathologist for the police. One day, after a murder took place, he was trying to collect blood specimen from the crime scene. When he arrived there, he found out that the murderer was still alive. The murderer got badly injured after he killed his own wife, but he could still be saved. Then, he heard a strange noise from the cupboard. When he opened that cupboard, he found a scared little boy there. That little boy was Tefuman. Uncle Sabe saved him and took him to live with him since then. He raised Tefuman like his own grandson. Tefuman was once a boy who could speak. But since he witnessed the traumatic incident where a man killed his mother, he was unable to speak. While Hacho and Garo were heading home after they finished doing their job, they got into an argument again. Hacho was mad because Garo drove very slowly. Garo suddenly stopped driving. Hacho was getting more mad at him because he stopped their van. He and Hacho finally got into a fight. A police officer saw them and knocked on the window of their van. He asked why they fought and parked their van in the middle of the street. Hacho told him that they were just arguing with each other. The police officer suddenly smelled something strange inside of their van. He became suspicious of them. He told them to get out of the van and open the van trunk. Garo finally got out of the van. Hacho also got out of the van and followed them. He had prepared his gun. The police officer checked the van trunk immediately after it was opened. Everything seemed normal. After that, he told them to continue their journey. He didn't realize that there was a jar that contained a human skin inside of that van. The next day, Hifumen and Hacho were playing shogi. Goro was watching them. Hacho asked them why Uncle Sabe had been going out without them lately. Goro told Hacho to focus on the game. He knew that Hacho was only trying to distract Hifumen's attention because he was going to lose soon. Hifumen finally managed to defeat Hacho. Meanwhile, Uncle Sabe enjoyed fishing in the harbor. He remembered the time where he met Hifumen for the first time again. He had no idea why he kept recalling that memory. Suddenly, an old man came to that place. He was Uncle Sabe's old friend. He was called Masuda. He used to be a gangster, but he had resigned from his work now. Uncle Sabe noticed that he walked with a limp. Masuda said that his leg got injured after he got shot on the leg. He found out that Uncle Sabe worked with a group of hitmen now. He said that he wanted to ask him for help. Not long after that, Hacho also came to that place. He was looking for Uncle Sabe. He saw Masuda talking to Uncle Sabe there. He canceled his plan to meet Uncle Sabe and left that place soon. After that, Uncle Sabe returned to their home. When he arrived there, Hacho asked him about the person whom he talked to in the harbor. Uncle Sabe then told them about his conversation with Masuda. Apparently, Masuda asked Uncle Sabe to help him to rescue his elderly brother. His elderly brother was currently living at a rest home. That rest home seemed normal from the outside, but turned out an illegal activity was always carried out in that place. Every day, the caregivers there injected some drugs that were mixed with amphetamine into the bodies of the residents there. Because of that, the residents of that nursing home became addicted to their drug. They always asked to increase the dose of the drug that was injected into their bodies. Because of that, some of them died of a drug overdose. But unfortunately, their deaths seemed normal, so nobody had suspected that nursing home. After those residents died, the caregivers there took their victims' money and property. Masuda said that he found out about the crime in that place when he visited his elderly brother at that nursing home one day. That time, he saw a doctor who was taking care of his brother giving a high dose of the drug to his brother. He was angry when he saw that. The doctor called the security guard right away. The security guard finally kicked Masuda out of that place and warned him not to come back. Because of that, Masuda asked Uncle Sabe to help him to rescue his elderly brother from that place. He was afraid if something bad happened to his brother. He also wanted to take revenge on the people who ran that nursing home. But Uncle Sabe refused his request right away because he knew that Masuda couldn't pay him and his group. After Goro heard that story, he said that a friend of a family member was also his friend. Hacho and Hifumen agreed with him. So, even though Masuda couldn't pay them, they decided to help Masuda to get rid of those people. At another place, Masuda disguised himself as a courier to enter the nursing home where his elderly brother was residing in. He wanted to rescue his brother. When he arrived there, he saw his brother lying unconscious on his bed. Suddenly, the doctor who took care of his brother came to that room. Masuda attacked the doctor immediately and threatened to kill him with his knife. He asked him about the person who ran that nursing home. Apparently, that nursing home was run by a group of criminals. In their office, those criminals heard that there had been a problem in that nursing home. They left their office immediately and rushed to Masuda's place. The doctor who was taking care of Masuda's elderly brother got paralyzed after Masuda injected a lot of amphetamine into his body. Not long after that, those criminals arrived in that room. They took Masuda to an empty field right away. In that empty field, they took turn to beat up Masuda. They were going to bury him alive. They had prepared an excavator to dig a hole to bury him there. They told Masuda to be grateful because they had been taking care of his elderly brother. Then, they attacked him for once more and pushed him into the hole. Uncle Sabe and his group finally arrived at that nursing home. Uncle Sabe pretended to be a sick elderly person who wanted to register himself as a resident there. The security guard asked him to show him his document. Uncle Sabe gave his document to him, but it fell to the ground. When the security guard picked up that document, Goro suddenly kicked him in the face. That security guard passed out right away. Uncle Sabe, Goro, and Hifumen then entered the building of the nursing home. They divided tasks and went to different ways. Meanwhile, in another building, Hacho was watching the situation at the nursing home. Uncle Sabe and Hifumen found Masuda's elderly brother. He saw him having a seizure on his bed. But suddenly, some gangsters came to that room. They threatened and kidnapped Uncle Sabe and Hifumen right away. Goro found the doctor who got paralyzed after Masuda injected him with a lot of amphetamine. He punched that doctor in the face. He asked him about Masuda's elderly brother. He had no idea that Uncle Sabe and Hifumen had been kidnapped by the criminals who ran that place. Suddenly, Hacho contacted him through a handheld transceiver. He told him that Uncle Sabe and Hifumen had been caught by the gangsters. Those gangsters took them to the empty field where they took Masuda before. They also pushed Hifumen into the hole where they buried Masuda. Then, a gangster aimed his gun at Uncle Sabe. He asked why Uncle Sabe and his group came to their nursing home and caused troubles there. Uncle Sabe saw a leg in that hole. He realized that those gangsters had buried Masuda there. Those gangsters said that they would also bury Uncle Sabe and Hifumen in that hole. In that chaotic situation, suddenly a gunshot was heard. Turned out, Hacho and Goro had arrived at that place. Hacho was the one who fired the gun into the air. After that, he shot the gangster who operated the excavator right away. Goro beat up those gangsters one by one. Hacho helped him to attack those gangsters with his gun. Suddenly, one of those gangsters tried to shoot Goro, but Uncle Sabe attacked him right away. After that, he jumped into the hole and helped Masuda. Fortunately, Masuda could still be saved. He was still alive. Then, Uncle Sabe and his group threw those gangsters into the hole. They stacked them there based on their ranks in the gang. They were going to take revenge on them by burying them alive. Hacho was ready in the excavator. One of those gangsters threatened that their boss was going to kill Uncle Sabe and his group if they killed him. But Uncle Sabe didn't care about that. He wasn't afraid of anyone. He calmly smoked his cigar and gave instruction to Hacho on how to bury them. Hacho obeyed his order. A few days later, Masuda had recovered from his illness. He asked Uncle Sabe to go fishing with him. He thanked him for helping him and his elderly brother. He suspected that the cleaner might be behind all of this. The cleaner was a secret criminal organization in Japan. They were quite famous in the Japan underworld. It seemed like Uncle Sabe also knew that group. At another place, a boy called Ken was being bullied by his schoolmates. His schoolmates suddenly stopped bullying him and ran away from that place when they saw Hifumen there. Hifumen helped that boy right away. Ken thanked him for helping him. Hifumen tried to respond to him, but sadly he couldn't speak. Ken realized that Hifumen was mute. He felt sympathy for him. Hifumen also felt sympathy for that boy because he saw himself in him. They were both lonely and friendless. They didn't have friends whom they could talk to on a daily basis. Then, Hifumen wrote his name on the wall. He tried to tell Ken that it was his name. He encouraged him and befriended him. He showed his science experiments to him. Ken was really happy when he saw those experiments. He enjoyed spending time with Hifumen. After that, Hifumen returned home. He was excited to put his new science experiments into his bag. He planned to show them to Ken. Hacho and Uncle Sabe were happy when they saw Hifumen's happy face. They were glad that Hifumen finally found a new friend. Hifumen went to meet Ken under the bridge. They spent time together by drawing the wall with crayons and doing science experiments. Hifumen really enjoyed spending time with his new friend. His face looked happy and his smile seemed so bright. They had been playing together for a week now. After school, Ken would always go under that bridge and meet Hifumen there. Suddenly, Ken received a call from his father. His father told him to go home soon. Ken told Hifumen that he needed to return home. He promised that he would see and play with Hifumen again tomorrow. Before Ken and Hifumen parted ways, they shook hands. Hifumen noticed that there were many bruises on Ken's hand. He was afraid if something bad happened to Ken. So, he decided to follow Ken secretly to find out what actually happened. Apparently, Ken's family was very abusive. When Ken arrived at home, his father hit him right away. His father was angry because he arrived home late. Hifumen peeked at them through the window. He saw Ken was being abused by his father. It reminded him of the time that his mother was being abused by a man. After Ken's father was gone, Hifumen entered the house quickly. He wanted to see if Ken was all right. He was worried about him. Then, he looked around that place. Ken's house was really messy. There were a lot of trash there. Hifumen found a picture of Ken and a woman. Ken told him that it was his mother, but sadly his mother had passed away. Now he lived with his stepfather. But he was unhappy because his father always treated him poorly. Then, Ken told Hifumen to leave because he was afraid if his stepfather returned home soon. At home, Hifumen told Goro about Ken's story. He said that he wanted to rescue and protect Ken from his abusive stepfather. He asked Goro to train him for fighting. He wanted to be physically stronger so he could fight Ken's stepfather. Goro agreed to help him. He liked to teach and train anyone who was determined to be physically stronger. The next day, when Ken arrived at home, he accidentally heard the conversation of his stepfather with a woman. His stepfather told that woman that he was the one who killed Ken's mother. He purposely killed Ken's mother in a car accident so he could claim her insurance. Turned out, before Ken's mother died, she had bought Ken insurance too. Ken's stepfather planned to do something to Ken so he could claim his insurance too. But he said that he needed to wait a little longer. Ken was angry when he heard that. He tried to attack his stepfather, but he failed. Since that day, Hifuman had never seen Ken again. Each time he went under the bridge to meet Ken, he couldn't find him there. So, he went to his school to look for him. He tried to ask Ken's schoolmates about him. But since he couldn't speak, Ken's schoolmates didn't understand him. They thought that he was just a random freak and left him. Apparently, Uncle Sabe had been following Hifuman secretly. He knew that Hifuman was looking for Ken. He helped Hifuman to ask Ken's schoolmates about Ken. After that, Uncle Sabe told Goro about Ken. He told him about Ken's abusive family and his friendship with Hifuman. At another place, Hifuman finally decided to go to Ken's house. Apparently, Ken had been abused and locked up in the bathroom by his stepfather for these past few days. His stepfather locked him up there so he couldn't run away. He also wanted him to starve to death. If Ken died of starvation, his death would look natural, so it would be easy for Ken's stepfather to claim his insurance. Hifuman knocked on Ken's neighbor's door. He pretended to look for his friend there. After Ken's stepfather was gone, Hifuman went to Ken's house immediately. He found Ken in a poor condition. He took him out of the bathroom immediately. But unfortunately, while Ken was trying to save Ken, Ken's stepfather returned home. He was mad when he saw Hifuman there. He beat him up right away. Hifuman tried to fight him back, but he wasn't physically strong enough. He was finally defeated by Ken's stepfather. Suddenly, Ken's stepfather had an idea. He planned to kill Ken and accuse Hifuman of murdering him. He knew that Hifuman couldn't speak, so it would be easy for him to frame Hifuman and get away with this murder. Then, Ken's stepfather took his baseball bat and tried to attack Hifuman with it. But suddenly, Goro came to that place and protected Hifuman. Goro punched Ken's stepfather hard in the face. Ken's stepfather collapsed right away. When Ken's stepfather woke up from his faint, he found his body buried in the sand at the beach. He was shocked when he saw that. He also saw Uncle Sabe and his group there. Uncle Sabe told him that the water would be flowing in towards the beach soon. Ken's stepfather was angry when he heard that. He called Uncle Sabe crazy and vile. Hacho was annoyed by him. He tried to kill him with a shovel, but Uncle Sabe stopped him right away. Uncle Sabe said that they were going to punish Ken's stepfather in their own way. The water would be flowing in towards the beach soon. When that happened, Ken's stepfather wouldn't be able to breathe. He would die of suffocation. Then, after Ken's stepfather died, Uncle Sabe and his group were going to harvest his internal organs. That was how smoking punished a bad person like Ken's stepfather. A few days later, Uncle Sabe and his group checked Ken's condition. After his stepfather died, Ken was adopted by his mother's family. Uncle Sabe and his group found out that Ken was doing so much better after he lived with his mother's family. Meanwhile, Hifuman continued his training with Goro. He was still determined to be physically stronger. Hacho bought Hifuman a pair of new shoes. He said that those shoes would help Hifuman to move more easily and quickly when he was fighting. Hifuman was happy when he received those new shoes. He thanked Hacho for that present. A few days later, in the evening, Hacho was walking down the street alone. It was raining hard that evening. Suddenly, he had flashback about his past. He remembered the time when he was walking down the street. It was also raining hard that time. Hacho then returned home and had dinner together with the rest of his gang. After Uncle Sabe and his group finished having dinner, they had a meeting. They were discussing about the target whom they were going to kill next. Their next target was a man called Takeo Tazawa. He was a Yakuza member. He had tiger and chrysanthemum tattoo on his body. Uncle Sabe told them that Tazawa had killed their friends and stolen 30 million yen from his gang, Sonoichi. After Tazawa committed those crimes, he disappeared without a trace. The members of Yakuza tried to look for him, but they couldn't find him anywhere. So, they asked Uncle Sabe and his group to kill him and take their money back from him. Uncle Sabe got information that Tadazawa was hiding in a house at the suburban area. He suspected that he was sick because he hadn't left his house for these past few days. After that, Uncle Sabe and his group prepared themselves to go to Tadazawa's hiding place. But Hacho said that he wanted to go there alone. He was going to take care of this problem alone. Turned out, earlier that day, Uncle Sabe came to a clinic to visit his old friend. His old friend was a doctor. He was also a famous tattooist in that area. Uncle Sabe visited him because he wanted to ask him about Tadazawa. His friend said that he knew something about Tadazawa, but he wouldn't give that information to Uncle Sabe for free. Because of that, Uncle Sabe paid him a sum of money to get information about Tadazawa. Hacho finally went to Tadazawa's house at the suburban area. He knocked on the door. He pretended to be a courier who was delivering a package there. Not long after that, a man opened the door. He was Tadazawa himself. Hacho noticed that Tadazawa's face looked so pale. It seemed like Uncle Sabe was right about his health condition. Tadazawa also looked suspicious of Hacho. In fact, he always suspected everyone who came to his house. Hacho also noticed that there were a doll and 2 pairs of kids' shoes inside of Tadazawa's house. He then asked Tadazawa about the address of the package that he wanted to deliver. But before he got any answer from him, Tadazawa already slammed the door in his face. After that, Hacho was watching. He suddenly saw a little girl came out of Tadazawa's house. It seemed like she was going to go to some place. Hacho followed that girl right away. That girl went to the roadside to pick some clovers. Hacho approached her and asked what she was doing there.